Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we are now continuing our discussion on the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the last session, we did shlokas 1 to 4. So in today's session, we will do two more shlokas, shlokas 5 and 6. Before we go there, we'll first do a reflection on our Samskriti, for which we've been spending time in every session. I think it is very important because that's the basis on which all our learning happens. Bhagavad Gita also is based in our Samskriti only. So today I have chosen a shloka from the Hitopadesha again of Sri Narayana Pandit. This is the next shloka from what we did last time. Sarva dravyeshu vidyaiva dravyamahur anuttamam aharyatvat anarghatvat akshayatvat cha sarvada. So what does it mean? So this shloka is a glorification of vidya or learning. Okay, learning or knowledge, you can say. It says sarva dravyeshu vidyaiva, vidya eva dravyam ahuhu anuttamam. Among all the kinds of things that one can possess, vidya or learning is that thing which has no superior. People say that. Okay, ahuhu means people say it is considered, like when we write a paper, we say this is considered to be like this. So vidya or learning is considered to be that thing above which there is nothing superior. There is nothing, no more precious thing than that. Why is it like that? Three properties. The first property is aharyatvam. Aharyatvam means what? Haran. Jiska haran nahi kiya ja sakta hai. That which cannot be stolen away. Right? So a person has different types of possessions. Typically, any possession can be stolen away. Right? It can be taken away from us. But our learning is something that's inside us. It's in our mind. It's in our brain. It's in our consciousness. Nobody can just come and take it away. The second property, anarghatvat. Anarghatvam means you cannot put a price on it. In more simple language, what it means is that you cannot purchase it. It has to be earned. It has to be acquired by the required process, the process of studying, doing apprenticeship from a guru. You have to acquire it like that. It cannot be just bought. You just can't go to somebody and say, okay, now I'll give you so much money. Give me all the vidya that you have. It doesn't work like that. Most other things can be bought like that, right? So many objects, wealth can be bought like that, but vidya cannot be bought like that. Nor can it be sold like that. It can neither be bought nor sold like that. Okay, now you may say that, but people go to an institute and they pay fees, and don't they get learning by paying fees? Now think a little bit. If you had such a question in your mind, then the answer, if you think a little bit, you will obviously realize that it's not the paying the fees which gives them the learning. Paying the fees is only a administrative requirement of being a part of an institute. Beyond paying the fees, the person actually has to spend his time and put in effort to acquire that learning. Only then the learning will come to that person. The person may even be given a degree by the institute. But if that person has not put that effort, then that learning will not be present. Right? So anarghatvam, that's the second property of vidya. And the third property is akshayatvam. Akshayatvam means that which doesn't perish like other things. It only grows. Anything else that we buy, if you buy a car, if you buy a computer, everything with time will either perish or become obsolescent, right? Things like electronic goods, they become obsolescent, means their value, even if they're working properly, their value after some time will become less. You will feel that, okay, now it's already 8 years since I have this computer. Now the computers of today are much better. Why am I sitting with this old one? And you yourself will discard it. Similarly, if you have a, say, something like a car, the car may not become obsolescent, but what will happen is its power will go down as you use it. Its wear and tear will ensure that it's not functioning as well as a new car. So you will want to discard it and buy a new car, right? And this happens to everything, including our own body, right? When the body grows old, the Atma moves out from one body and goes to another body, that we learn from the Bhagavad Gita itself. But not with knowledge. Knowledge, older the knowledge, the deeper it becomes, because it stays with us, we reflect on it, we make use of it. As we make use of our knowledge, that knowledge becomes deeper and richer, and it helps us to build more knowledge. So it's akshaya. It's like akshaya patra, right? It doesn't become kshaya. Uska kshaya nahi hota hai. So aharyatvam, anarghatvam, akshayatvam. Three things. And sarvada means always. It's not only in one particular point of time or one particular period of time. These three properties are always a part of our learning, right? So that is why sarva dravyeshu vidyaeva dravyamahuhu anuttamam. And we should respect learning and we should aspire for learning. And when we study Gita, that's exactly what we are doing. We are pursuing a learning which we don't get elsewhere. The kind of knowledge that the Bhagavad Gita gives us is not readily available in the normal textbooks that we study as part of our education, normal education. The Bhagavad Gita is very exclusive knowledge. It tells us something that is beyond this knowledge. It opens our understanding to a reality that we were not aware of, right? And if we already were aware of some part of that reality, it deepens that understanding. So from my own personal experience, I can tell you that although I have been reading the Gita for the last maybe 25, 30 years, even today when I read the Gita, I find something that I did not see before in it, right? When I read the commentary, when I read the shloka again, there's a fine shade of meaning that emerges, which is beautiful. So the Bhagavad Gita is the Vidya that we are seeking from as we go through these sessions. This is the translation of this shloka. This shloka is written for all types of knowledge, but we are now talking about spiritual knowledge, or what is called as Paravidya. Okay, next I will do a quick recap of what we learned in the previous session of our learning. The first shloka of the fourth chapter, Sri Bhagavan began by saying that he had given the same yoga that he is now teaching to Arjuna. This is not the first time that he's talking about it. He has taught this before. And he cites one instance of that. And that was when he taught this to Vivaswan, the sun god or Surya Deva. And who in turn gave it to Vaivaswata Manu, his son Manu. And then it went to Ikshvaku, who was Manu's son. And then Sri Bhagavan says that this way it was actually passed on from generation to generation. So while we were contemplating on this, we also went into the life cycle of the universe, and we learned that our universe and our Brahma are currently exactly 50 years old on their time scale. And today, in their time scale, it is the first day of the 51st year of Brahma's life. Right? And this first day, the day is called Kalpa in our language. Kalpa. And this particular Kalpa that is going on now for Brahma is called Shweta Varaha Kalpa. Shweta means white. Varaha means the boar, the form. So Shweta Varaha. So the Varaha avatar of Vishnu appeared in this Kalpa. So this is called Shweta Varaha Kalpa. And we are in the Kali Yuga of the 28th Chaturyuga. So one Kalpa has 14 Manvantaras. And this is the seventh Manvantara that's going on right now. And in the seventh Manvantara, each Manvantara has 71 Chaturyugas. And we are in the 28th Chaturyuga. And in that Chaturyuga, we are in the Kali Yuga of the Chaturyuga. Right? This is all all this we learned in the last session. And we also did a quick calculation of the lifetime of this universe. It was very interesting in the last session. We also saw that Sri Bhagavan says that owing to the powerful influence of time, Sa kalena iha mahata yogo nashtaf parantapa. He says that this yoga has been lost because of the influence of time. Even though it was being passed down from one king to the other king, somewhere along the line, the chain became weaker and weaker, and then this yoga was lost. So now I have to give it to you again. Finally, he says, Sa eva ayam mayate adya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto asime sakachaiti rahasyam yetad uttamam. Says, you are my most intimate bhakta. Bhakta is a person who does seva, bhakti. Bhakti means seva, the seva mentality. Bhagavan has that seva mentality. And anybody else who has it becomes a bhakta of Bhagavan, because they both then have the same mentality. So, bhaktaha asime sakacha iti. You're also my friend. You see me not only as a person who is his master, but you also see me as a friend. In the specific case of Arjuna, we know that he was in the bhav of looking at Sri Bhagavan as a cousin and as a friend. He was his cousin brother, right? His father, Arjuna's mother, and Krishna's father, Vasudeva, they are brother and sister. So they had this intimacy as cousins also, not merely as Bhakta and Bhagavan, but also as cousins in this lifetime. And therefore, that added to that friendship between them. So there are many, many activities described in Mahabharata, in Bhagavatam, and other scriptures, which talk about the interaction, the intimate interaction between Arjuna and Krishna. So Shri Krishna also addresses him that way in the Bhagavad-Gita. He sees him with compassion. Right? Of course, in the Gita, in the context of the Gita, he has put Arjuna in a state of Maya, and that's explained elsewhere. That he has put him there so that he can then deliver the Gita through him. He's using Arjuna as an instrument to deliver the Gita. So why has he picked Arjuna? He could have picked Yudhishthira, he could have picked Bhima, he could have picked somebody else, right? So there is a special intimacy with Arjuna. So he picked him. Said, now you become my instrument through which I can give this Gita for the people of the Kali Yuga. Let them hear this Gita and benefit, right? And so this point also, like we said in the last time, also gives us one more realization that this Gita is not something that you just put up on the wall and say that everybody come and read it. Because Sri Bhagavan explains that this intimacy is required for people to understand what I'm saying and not misunderstand it. Why? As we will see today onwards, Sri Bhagavan begins talking about himself. He says, I am the source of everything. I'm different from you. I'm different from you in these ways. We are going to see all that. So when somebody talks about themselves like that, it is very much possible that someone else who is listening is going to misunderstand it. Oh, this guy is just boasting. Who does he think he is? He's simply talking. That's what we do, right? If somebody comes to you and starts just talking about themselves and praising themselves, I am this, I am that, then after some time you may not say it to them on their face, but you will think this guy is just a, boast is just a heavy-headed person. He's got a big head weight. He's got a big head weight, and he thinks of himself as the be all and end all of this world. Who does he think he is? So people will misunderstand. That is why the Gita is not meant to be openly, advertised. It's not an item to be advertised or marketed. It's an item to be discussed among people who understand and are willing to understand with an open mind that there is a purpose behind this, that there is a reason why Sri Bhagavan is speaking in this manner, and there is a benefit for me if I receive it in that mentality and not in the mentality of looking at him critically, right? So criticality is also required. Criticality is required in understanding the fine nuances of the Bhagavad Gita. So their criticality will come, as I'll also point out as we go forward. So we saw all this in the last class. Now, despite all this, we saw in the last session how Arjuna also asked this doubt. He asked Bhagavan that, how come? I mean, you were born just around the same time that I was born, and Vivaswan lived long back. So how can you say that you gave this to Vivaswan? And so in the last class, we asked how come Arjuna is asking this question when he knows Bhagavan so well? And we said that that's because he's been put in that Maya. He's now put in a Maya where he has forgotten his knowledge is now temporarily covered. And we will talk about this Maya as we go forward, what this Maya is about and why it plays a role in the delivery of the Bhagavad Gita and in Sri Bhagavan's different Leelas in general. Okay. Now we will move forward. This is the first shloka for today. This is the fifth shloka of the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So Sri Bhagavan is answering Arjuna's question about how come you gave it to Vivaswan when Vivaswan was born long before you and you are born just now. Sri Bhagavan uvacha bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacha Arjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veta parantapa. So Sri Bhagavan says, bahuni me vyatitani means so many have passed by. What? Janmani. So many births of mine have passed by. Tavacha Arjuna, and yours also. Both you and me have taken so many births before. Then he says, Tanyaham. Tani aham Veda Sarvani. I remember all of them. I know all of them. Each and every birth of mine and yours, I remember. Natvam Veta Parantapa. But you don't remember any of them except the present one. Okay, so this is where Sri Bhagavan starts revealing his nature. So from this shloka itself, you can make out that obviously, if he has to remember all the births of not only himself but somebody else also, then he cannot be an ordinary person like us. So, what is the translation of this shloka? Sri Bhagavan said, "Oh Arjuna, numerous births have taken place, both yours and mine. Oh Parantapa, I know all of them, but you don't." Now, let's look at the fine points that are made in context of this shloka. So he pointed out, basically he's now answering why he can instruct Vivaswan in an earlier birth. All he's saying is that I have been born many times. In one of those births, I happen to be instructing Vivaswan. That's all. So the Shastra confirms this. It's not only in the Gita, but in many other places in the scripture, particularly the Shruti. So we have Shruti and Smriti. The Gita will fall under Smriti or Hitiyas. Okay, Smriti is where it is man-made, means some author like Vyasa, for example, in the case of Gita, part of Mahabharata, which is written by Vyasa. But Shruti is not written by any author, it's Apaurushaya. So this is from the Shruti. Ekopi san bahudayo vibhati. This is from the Gopala Tapani Upanishad. It says, though being one, he appears in many manifestations. Again from the Shruti, this is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. It says, it's trying to describe the reality. It says that superior reality that we know is complete, it's Purnam. And this reality, which we are experiencing here now, is also Purnam, complete. And he says this Purnam that we are experiencing has come from that Purnam. Purnat Purnamudachyate. The complete has emanated from the complete. But Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. That's even after removing the complete from the complete, we would normally think it would become zero, right? No. But what remains is also complete. So the complete gives birth to the next complete, but the original complete remains complete. It is not diminished. Okay, so this you can understand, say, with a simple example of, say, lighting a candle, right? If there is one lit candle, you can light any number of other candles with that lit candle, and they will all be as bright as the original candle. And this original candle will not diminish just because it lit the other candles. So that's a very crude analogy, but Sri Bhagavan's nature is like that. His nature is that he can expand himself in many forms. This material energy that we see is also his expansion. But even though it's coming out of him, he does not diminish in any manner. Tavacha Arjuna, when I appeared, this is particularly significant, this fine point that's being made is that why is he saying Tavacha Arjuna? Means your birth also, you also have been born. He wants to also say that this is part of the intimacy, that whenever I appear, I also make you appear. You also come as my Parshad and you help me in my eternal activities. So we know of at least one other form in which Bhagavan and Arjuna appeared together, and that is called the Nara Narayana form. Nara is Arjuna and Narayana is Krishna. And we say that, as we hear, they are present in Badrikashrama, in the upper Badrikashrama, not the Badri that we go to. Beyond that, if you go up above the Himalayas, then there is what is called as the upper Badri. And it is said that the great sages like Vyasa, they reside there and they are performing penance even now, right? So that is a place where Naranarayana also reside. Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veta. So this is the Sarvajñatva. This is one of the properties of Bhagavan, that he is all-knowing. There is nothing in existence that he is not conscious of. Although he has his original identity, a distinct identity, he's also conscious of all other identities, and everything is a part of him. And that is the difference between him and the Jivatma. The Paramatma and Jivatma differ in this sense. The Jivatma does not have this ability. The Paramatma has this ability. All encompassing, all conscious, all knowing. The Jivatma is only conscious of its own body. For example, each of us has a body, and we are conscious of anything that happens in our body, right? Actually, sometimes we are not conscious of even that, but to some extent we are. For example, if somebody, say, touches my leg, or touches my hand, then I'm conscious of it, right? But if somebody touches your hand, then I'm not conscious of it. So my consciousness expands within my body, but Sri Bhagavan's consciousness expands everywhere. He is all present. The sixth shloka now. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. So he continues from the previous shloka. He says, Ajopi. Ajaha means one who is not born, one who has no birth. Api, although, even though I'm not born, san, the word san in Sanskrit is a word used for the continuous present tense. In English, we say continuous present tense, right? Although being, if you want to translate this literally, you would say, although being unborn, avyayatma. The word avyayatma means one whose body is imperishable. Okay? Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. Bhutanam Ishwaraha, the master of all the living beings, Ishwara, of all the Bhuta, means living beings. Api san, again, although being the master of all the living beings, Prakritim swam adhisthaya, swam prakritim, my own nature, adhisthaya, being situated in. Adhishthanam means situation, being situated in something. Being situated in my own prakriti, sambhavami atmamayaya. I appear. Sambhavami, I manifest. Samyak bhavami. I appear. I come into existence by my atmamaya. Atmamaya. Okay, so this is how this shloka is translated. Despite being unborn and eternal, and despite being the master of all living beings, I, situated in my own nature, manifest myself using my atmamaya, or my self-potency. There's some very fine points again made for this particular shloka. And the points I make, as I've told you in the past also, are based on some Sanskrit commentaries, particularly two Sanskrit commentaries, one written by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, who lived in the 17th or 18th century, 17th century, and another by Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana, who lived in the 18th century. So these two commentaries are particularly appealing to me, so I have been studying them, and these points come from there. But many of their points are also more or less consistent with the points made by the other commentators like Shankara, Ramanuja, who came before them. Ajaha, even though being one who is never born, means that his body is not created new. So why should he say this? Now, all that he says in the shloka is essentially to give us the contrast between himself and the Jivatma. Right? In the case of the Jivatma, the body is created every time it is born. So if his body is not created new, then what is new? So here Sri Baladeva says, Raveriva abhivyakti matrameva janma. Raveriva. Ravihi means the sun, right? Raveriva, like the sun, abhivyakti matrameva. It's just a manifestation. The sun is not created every day. It only manifests every day. And how does it manifest? It manifests when the earth rotates towards it. Okay, we are now facing the night. Again, after some hours, the rotation of the earth will take us towards the sun. The sun remains where it is. But when we face the sun, we are able to see it. It manifests to us, right? Similarly, when the sun sets in the night, it's just unmanifesting. It is still there only, but we have turned away from it. This is exactly how Sri Krishna's birth and death are to be understood. He is not born like the way the normal living beings in this world are born. When we are born, we go through a biological process. There is a contact between the mother and the father, which gives us the seed for an embryo, and then the embryo grows in size. And eventually, when the embryo is grown enough to be called a baby, it's able to find its way out. And then we say that thing is born. That living being is born, that human being is born, baby is born. We call that as the birth, right? But his birth does not happen in that manner. Similarly, when he dies, what we call as death does not happen to him. He just unmanifests. He just vanishes from our appearance, although it may appear that he is undergoing a process of death. So again, we have another place in Padma Purana. This is another citation from the Padma Purana. Pratyakshatvam harer janma na vikaraha katanchana. So harer janma, the Hari's birth is only pratyakshatva, means it's only a pratyaksha. It is not janma, na vikaraha. There is nothing called vikara in it. Okay, so we will analyze vikara. We'll just coming forward to that point a little later. There's no vikara in this. There's no transformation involved in it. I also want to point out when I'm citing like this that just as in modern scholarship, like you people are doing your PhD, and when you write something, you will cite from the earlier scholars, right? You cite what they have said. You cite from data sources. You cite from published sources. You cite something that is well accepted. Like if you want to say that New Delhi is the capital of India, then you don't have to cite a source for that because it's well accepted. Similarly, in all our traditional writing also, like all the commentaries that you see, you find, these authors have cited the earlier authors to build their arguments. They've built logical arguments to explain the points being made here. It's not simply their fantasies. It's not something they imagined. They have studied the works of earlier scholars who in turn have analyzed earlier books than them. So it's been coming down the ages like that, right? And the basis for everything is the Veda and the allied Shastra like the Mahabharata, Ramayana, the innumerable Puranas, the Upanishads and everything, right? So everything is cited from there and justification is given for why something should be accepted, right? So everything, the scholarliness you will see is very fine scholarship you will see in these commentaries.
Something did not come from Western side, sir. I believe our ancient rishis.
Exactly. That is how a scholarship built in this world. So what the Western philosophers have done is basically borrowed this system of.
And then again made us.
Again, from the Purusha Sukta, this is from the Veda. Again, the similar point is being made. Ajayamano bahudha vijayate. The Purusha Sukta is a very famous hymn, and you can actually go to YouTube and search on Purusha Sukta. You will find many people have posted videos of this chanting of Purusha Sukta. It's very pleasant to hear. And Purusha Sukta is a hymn that is played in auspicious, ceremonies in the Hindu culture, in marriages or in beginning a new some initiative. People play the Purusha Sukta because it invokes auspiciousness. It's a prayer to Vishnu. And the Purusha Sukta is present in Veda, in the Rig Veda, in the Yajur Veda, in Atharva Veda. And in the Purusha Sukta, this statement is found. Ajayamano bahudha vijayate. He is never born, but he appears everywhere. He appears multifariously. And Shri Baladeva makes this fine observation in his Bhashya. He says, Ataeva Sutika grihe divyayudha bhushanasya divya rupasya Shadaishwarya sampannasya tasya vikshanam smaryate. So even in the maternity ward, he is using Sutika Griha. Sutika Griha means the maternity ward in English, where the delivery of the baby happens. In the earlier times, there was no hospital. People delivered babies in their own homes or. So even when he appears out of his mother's womb, if you want to call it as a birth, he appears with all the divine weapons, ornaments, and a beautiful form. He is Shadaishwarya Sampanna. All his Aishwarya, his opulence is with him when he appears. Not like the way we are born. When we are born, it's a naked baby which comes out of the womb, right? It's covered with all the fluids from the mother's body. Immediately it has to be washed so it doesn't catch any infection. It's crying, it's weeping. But his birth is not like that. He manifests. Okay, so if you want to go further into the detail of this, if you read the Bhagavatam, the Dashamaskanda of Bhagavatam, it's described in the second chapter of the Dashamaskanda, first or second chapter, I think second chapter, how he appeared from the womb of Devaki, right? And how his Janma happened. If you see the narrative goes that Kamsa, he heard this divine voice when he was going with Devaki to Vasudeva's house to leave her there after the marriage. The voice comes and says that, this sister's eighth child will kill you. He'll be born to kill you. Then Kamsa panics and he puts Devaki and Vasudeva in the prison. He loses all his love for his sister and he says that, okay, now I'm going to make sure that initially he wants to kill Devaki, but Vasudeva pleads with him and says, no, no, don't kill her. She's your own sister. Instead of killing her, I will hand over all the babies to you and you can kill them when they are born, right? So he starts planning for killing the eighth baby actually originally, but then there is one more divine intervention there, and Narada comes and he says that the word eighth can be misunderstood, and maybe the first child, maybe the eighth child. By some logic, he tells him and confuses him totally. So he says, then I'll kill all the children. Let me not wait for the eighth one, because any child could be the eighth one. So I'll kill all of them as they appear. And eventually, when the seventh one is in the womb, everybody is waiting now. Okay, we are now the penultimate child that's going to kill Kamsa. So what Sri Bhagavan does is that he transfers, he calls his Yogamaya, his own sister Yogamaya, who takes the form of Mahamaya. He calls Yogamaya and he tells her that, now please transfer that, whatever has appeared in the womb of, that is me only. I have come there as the seventh child. Now please transfer that to the womb of Rohini. And Rohini is staying there. She's another wife of Vasudeva. She's right now staying in Vraja. She's not staying here in Mathura. She's not in Mathura. Devaki is in Mathura, but Rohini is in Vraja with Nanda and Yashoda. So please transfer this womb there. I have a purpose for doing that. I will tell you that later. And I will now appear. Okay, so as soon as this transfer happens, that actually is Balaram. Balaram is born to Rohini later on. Sri Bhagavan appears in the mind of Vasudeva. So this is how this appearance happens. It's not like Vasudeva and Devaki had some private moment together in which they made physical contact with each other and something from the body of Vasudeva went to the body of Devaki. No, nothing like that happened. This is how it happens, and Bhagavatam describes this, systematically describes it. In Vasudeva's mind, because his mind is very pure, he's very pure, and even otherwise he's always thinking of Sri Bhagavan, right? He's a bhakta. So in his mind, Sri Bhagavan descends and he appears, and the moment he appears in his mind, Vasudeva's body begins to shine like a million suns. He becomes very, very bright. He becomes so bright that people can't look at him. He's so bright. He's become so effulgent because of the presence of Bhagavan in his mind. So this lasts for some time. And after some time, through his mind, Vasudeva transfers that into the mind of Devaki. So then Bhagavan moves from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, and he is sitting in her mind. And all that lustre moves to her, and she becomes very beautiful. She becomes so beautiful and lustrous, so shining. She's shining. Her body is shining. Her face is shining. She's so resplendent that everybody notices it. Nobody can, even in the jail, people start talking about it. What is that? What has happened to her? And then Kamsa gets the wind of it. He thinks that now this fellow has come. It must be Vishnu who has come now, because Devaki has never looked like this before. Okay. Then from the mind of Devaki, he transfers himself to the womb of Devaki. He moves into the womb of Devaki. And Devaki can feel that, yeah, something is present here now. That energy has gone here. She can feel that. And then after some time, when the time comes for his appearance, at the right time, he just manifests himself outside. So first, Devaki sees in front of her, Vasudeva and Devaki, they both see. He doesn't come out of the same body part that we take birth from, right? He just unmanifests himself from the womb of Devaki and appears in front of Devaki and Vasudeva in the prison as the four-handed Vishnu form, as a tall standing Vishnu, right? We have seen Vishnu, we know as Indians, I don't have to explain what the form of Vishnu looks like, the Chaturbhuja Vishnu, holding the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, right, in his four hands. He stands there in front of Vasudeva and Devaki, and then they know that he has now appeared. So he then tells them that there's a conversation between them and him. They bow down to him. They offer their prayers. And he tells them, see, in your earlier birth, you had prayed for me to be your son. You had actually prayed that someone like me should be your son. But there is no one like me. And the only way that I can fulfill that boon is that I myself appear. I can't send somebody like me because there's no one else like me. So I appeared as your son. And this is how I am fulfilling in 3 births. I'm going to be your son. This is the second birth in which I have come, right? Second or third birth. I appeared as your son. So he says all this. And at the end of that conversation, that same Vishnu form suddenly vanishes. And they find in front of them a small baby form. And that baby looks exactly like Vishnu. It is first 4-handed. It has all the appearance of Vishnu, except that it is small in size like a baby. And those 4 hands then vanish and he becomes 2-handed. And he starts behaving like a baby. So this is the beautiful description, narration of how Krishna appears in this world. And you can see here that Ataeva Sutika Grihe Divyayudha Bhushanasya Divya Rupasya Shadaishwarya Sampannasya Tasya Vikshanam Smaryate. Baladeva points this out. He says that is why, because it's not like a normal birth. He doesn't have to be born as a naked baby and then, clothes are put on him and ornaments are put on him. It's not like that. He's born like that. And you see the same thing not only in the birth as Krishna, but if you see the Bhagavatam and other scripture, in all the other forms, like when he appears as Vamana, when he appears as Narsimha, right? He appears from the pillar as Narsimha. Hiranyakashipu is saying, where is this guy? Prahlad is saying that whatever is your source of strength is the same as my source of strength. And who is that? That is the Vishnu. What the hell are you saying? Who is this Vishnu? All the time you are saying Vishnu, Vishnu, but I can't see him. Where is he? He is everywhere. Tell me where when you say everywhere. He says everywhere. There is nowhere that he is not present. Okay, is he here? Is he there? Is he there? Yes, yes, he is there. Is he in this pillar? Yes. Okay, let me see. He breaks the pillar and out comes Narasimha, right? And when Narasimha comes, that is the birth that we are referring to. And he's filled with all his weapons, ornaments, his full form as Vishnu, but a different form, right? So this is exactly what Baladeva is pointing out, that this is a way to understand his birth, not like the way we understand our birth. Now the word avyayatma, okay, ajopi san avyayatma. So what does this word mean? Here the word atma here, because earlier you see in the Gita in the 2nd chapter, the word atma was analyzed in great detail, right? Shloka number 11 to shloka number 30. All about the Jivatma, the properties of Jivatma, everything was done in detail. And there it was referring to us living beings in this samsara. So here the word Atma in the context of Krishna, does it refer to his Atma, his body, his Atma, he being an Atma like us? No. Here the word Atma cannot refer to a self that's different from the body, because it's already known that the self is imperishable. So there is no need to say Avyayatma. Avyaya adjective is used here to mean imperishable. It can't refer to a self that's different from the body because it's already known. It will become redundant. It will have the fault of redundancy. So if you say Atma, you don't have to say Avyaya. You can just say Atma. If it is said Avyayatma, then it's not referring to the self as different from the body. It's referring to the body. So here it's referring to the body because in the context of Krishna, in the context of Bhagavan, there is no difference between the body and the self like it is for us. The Atma and the Deha are not different. The Atma and Deha are both the same. Shri Bhagavan is both his Atma and his Deha. He is not different from either of them. And this is because he is a Nitya Mukta. He doesn't have a birth in samsara like us. We have a body because we are in the samsara. Once the Jivatma gets mukti, then the Jivatma also reaches the same stage where his body and the self are not different. His form is the same as his self, right? So this is pointed out here as a very fine point, that Avyayatma here is used to indicate his body and not his self as different from the body. So again, a question comes that the word Avyaya, if you say it refers to his form, which is imperishable, and now he has taken the birth as Krishna, he's appearing as the 2-handed Krishna or the 4-handed Vishnu, then what about all those earlier forms, Rama, Vamana, Narasimha? Where have they gone? We don't see them now. So have they become perished? Have they perished? Because Avyaya means imperishable. So have they perished? The point is no. They have not perished. They have always existing. And the word Avyaya is used to indicate that too. That those forms are not perished. They are not ceasing to exist. They are existing, but we are not seeing them. They are not manifesting themselves, but they can manifest themselves again whenever they want to, right? They always exist. So now we come to the word vikara. The nature of his body comes self, nature of Sri Bhagavan and of the Mukta Jiva is that it has no vikara. Why? Because the vikara applies to the body, the Stula Sharira. So there is this book by Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara wrote several different texts and he presented Vedanta philosophy, right? He analyzed the Vedanta Sutra and he wrote books to make it easier to understand. So one of his books is called Tattva Bodha. And in the Tattva Bodha, in the third section of Tattva Bodha, the first shloka says this. Asti jayate vardhate viparinamate apakshiyate vinashyati iti shad vikaravat etat stula shariram. The stula sharira means the gross body that we have. Gross body has 6 vikaras, so 6 types of transformation. What are those 6 transformations? First is asti. Asti means exists. Means it has an existence. It has some existence, some time period in which it exists. And on the basis of that, the other 5 transformations happen. What is that? Jayate, takes birth. Vardhate, grows. Viparinamate, it reaches a mature stage, maybe at around the age of 40, 45, 50. The body reaches some level of maturity. And after that, by the time 60 or so, the decay begins. Apakshiyate, vinashyati. Then finally, at some appropriate time, destruction. And beyond that, once the Jivatma leaves the body doesn't continue to exist. It just decomposes, right? You can't do anything. It just decomposes. But Sri Bhagavan's body or Bhagavan's self does not experience this. He is always as he is. He remains in that way all the time. Bhutanam Ishwaraha. Ajopi san avyayatma. Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. He is the master of all the living beings. And this phrase, api san, is used 2 times. Normally, in good poetic composition, if the same word is repeated, and I would say this for your scholarly writing as PhD scholars also, in the same sentence or within the same paragraph, if you repeat the same word like the or sometimes the same adjective multiple times, it can appear as the fault of redundancy. Means, why are you saying it again and again? It's considered bad writing sometimes, right? So be careful. So here, this question can be raised. Api san is used 2 times. Why does he have to say it 2 times and why does he have to repeat it? So it's pointed out that it's repeated because it has to be emphasized. The contrast between him and the Jivatma has to be emphasized. The Jivatma in samsara has certain properties. Bhagavan's properties are completely different, distinctly different. The Jivatma, for example, his birth is a result of the past karma. Right? Whenever we take a new body, or whenever any living being takes a body, there is some combination of the accumulation of all the punya and papa that Jivatma has done in the past, in its past human lives. Okay, if it was in some other births, non-human births, in those births, there is no karma. It only experiences karma. It doesn't create new karma. It only expends or it only spends the past karma it accumulated over so many births. But in the human birth, because the human being is considered to be intelligent, is endowed with an intelligence to understand dharma. Human beings can understand dharma that animals cannot. We can talk about dharma. We can tell each other to follow dharma. We can follow dharma. We can decide not to follow dharma. All that free will is given to us. And because we are given that free will and choice, we are also given the reaction for that. If we follow dharma and live by dharma, then we get punya. And punya leads to better future. If we don't follow dharma, consciously decide not to do it or unknowingly decide not to do it, either way, there is papa. And it results in a more miserable future than would have been possible otherwise. But in the case of Bhagavan or a Nitya Mukta Jiva, such a thing doesn't happen. His birth or his appearance is not a product of past karma. Rather, it is by swecha. Swecha means swaicha, his own independent free will. He decides that, okay, now I will play this Leela. I will do this. I will appear as the son of Devaki. I will behave as the son of Yashoda. I'll give them pleasure. I'll make them happy. I'll make so many other people happy. When I do that, So many other people will look at me, they will like me, they will enjoy this, and I'll attract them towards me. So by his own will, by his own thinking, he decides to appear, and he's not pushed by anyone or anything to manifest himself. Okay, now the second part of the shloka, Prakritim Swam Adhisthaya. So this means situated in one's own nature. Swam Prakriti, not the other Prakriti. Like I was telling you in a previous session about how in the samsara, the Prakriti that exists here is made of the three gunas, right? Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna. And all the Jivatmas are under the influence of that Prakriti, right? So the Jivatma's original Prakriti, that is a Swarupa, is not experienced by the Jivatma because of that Maya. But in the case of Bhagavan, that Maya doesn't act on him. So he comes in his own Prakriti, his own original Swabhav or Swarup. Prakriti is also a synonym for these words here, Swabhava and Swarupa. Swabhava means the inner constitutional nature of anything. Okay, you can use this word Swabhava for anything, not only for Bhagavan. You can use it for, let's take sugar, for example. Okay, the Swabhava or the Swarup of sugar is, let's say, to be sweet. Sweetness is a Swarupic property of sugar. Similarly, if you take fire, okay, heat or light, these are the Swarupa of fire. So everything has its essence, Swabhava or Swarup, right? So Sri Bhagavan has his own Swarup, an inner constitutional nature. Okay, we will talk about that a little bit more now. So he manifests that nature when he comes here. He is not taking a material body which is subject to the three gunas of this Prakriti, this Apara Prakriti. Rather, he comes in his own Prakriti, not the Apara Prakriti. And therefore it is said, this is from the Shruti again, it is from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, one of the major Upanishads. It says, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natat samaschabhyadikascha drishyate, parasya shaktir vividhaiva shruyate, swabhaviki jnana palakriyacha. It's a very beautiful shloka in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. It says, of him, natasya karyam, there exists no organs of action. Karanam. Karanam means organs of action. Karyam means the obligation to perform action. So here, when you say there's no organ of action, does it mean that he's devoid of even what we have? Because we have organs of action. No. It just means that he doesn't have a material set of organs. His spiritual body has its own properties with which he can perform action, right? So he has his form with hands, legs, whatever. His hands, legs are not the same as what our hands and legs are. These are made of material properties like flesh, blood, and stuff like that. But his organs of action are not of that type. That's the point being made here. So it says, Natat samaschabhyadikascha drishyate. There is nothing that is seen which is equal to him or superior to him. And that is why when Aditi asked for this boon, that please give me a son who is just like you, he said, that's possible only if I come as your son. Because there's nothing like me, and there's nothing superior to me also. So I can bless you with my own self as your son. Parasya Shakti, his Shakti is Para. Para, Asya Shakti, Para. Means my potency or his potency is superior. Shakti. Superior means superior to what? Superior to that of the material potency that we see, that we are experiencing. And Vividha eva shruyate. It is heard that this potency is multifarious, Vividha. And it has dimensions. It's multidimensional, and it has the dimensions of knowledge, jnana, jnana, bala, kriyacha. So jnana is knowledge, bala means strength, and kriya means activity. So all these things are present in him. And this shloka describes his potencies in this manner. In different other places, you will find other different descriptions of his nature and potency. So in another place, Sri Bhagavan's nature is described as Sachidanandamaya. Sachidananda, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Okay, these three words. Sat means the eternal truth, something that is pure, something that's good. Om Tat Sat. Sat means truth, right? Chit. Chit means intellect, the ability to cognize, the cognition ability, right? This is a Chit Shakti. Ananda. Ananda means happiness or bliss, extreme happiness, extreme bliss. Okay, so his body or his nature is described as being composed of Sat, Chit and Ananda, these three things. And this also is described in another place in terms of three types of Shakti. The Sat Shakti is also called as Sandhini Shakti. Chit is described as Samvit Shakti, and Ananda is described as the Hladini Shakti. Hladini, that which gives pleasure, which gives happiness, joy, right? And so in Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti's commentary, he uses the term, he says, Sachidananda Ghanaika Rasam. Means he's dense. If you look at him, you can consider him to be a dense accumulation of Sachidananda. Ghana means dense, that which is intense or dense. It's not just a mild existence of Sat, Chit and Ananda, it is intense Sat, Chit and Ananda. That is that is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is like that. The next term used here is Atma Maya. Atma Maya. Atma Maya means my own Maya, my own Shakti. So his potency is called Maya. That's the term for his potency. The word Maya can take two forms, Yoga Maya, Mahamaya. Yoga Maya is the form in which that potency assists him in performing different types of leelas. Okay, so for example, he appears as Sri Bhagavan. Now, in that appearance as Bhagavan, in his mind, he considers himself very consciously as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yashoda. Right? It's not that he's thinking that actually I am Vishnu, but I have to pretend because I have promised her. Now, what to do? I have to now act as if I am her son. I have to act as if I am Yashoda's son. I have to act as if I am Arjuna's cousin. No. He really thinks like that. His thought process in his mind at that point of time, very consciously, he relates himself as that. He's just like now, you and I, each of us relates ourselves as so-and-so's son, so-and-so is our father. We naturally relate to that person as father or son, etc., right? Exactly in the same way, he very naturally thinks of Yashoda, Devaki, Nanda as mother, father, etc. Right? So how does this naturally come when actually he is not that? He is actually eternally Vishnu, but he is appearing that only because he has to satisfy a boon. That's by the work of Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya creates this setup for him. She arranges him to be in that state. She's serving him in that capacity. His own Shakti, it serves him and makes him enjoy that experience of being the son of so and so, right? But this is very unlike the Jivatma. The Jivatma does not have Yoga Maya acting upon them. The Jivatma has the Mahamaya acting upon them. The Mahamaya is also referred to in the Bhagavad-Gita. Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya, Shri Bhagavan says. This energy of mind, divine energy of mind, this Maya of mine, is very difficult to cross over for the Jivatma. Mama maya duratyaya. Okay, Durga. She's called Durga because dukkena gantum shakya. The name Durga for Mahamaya comes because she is very difficult to cross over. She is so powerful. You cannot just cross over her. She keeps us under illusion. She makes us think that we are this body, that we have to enjoy with this body. Our enjoyment through this body is the all in all that we have. The goal of life is to just enjoy. There's nothing called God. So this perception that there is no superior being, what is the proof? What is the proof that there is a God? Who says there is God? I don't believe it. Somebody has written that. So this kind of thinking is the influence of Maya. Maya makes us feel that anything about a superior nature is unreal. It's just imagination. And what is real is all that we can perceive. And this also, there was a system in India also earlier which had this kind of a thinking. It's called the Charvaka philosophy, right? Charuvaka actually is not the name of a person. Charuvak. Charu means sweet. Sweet words. Okay, these words are actually sweet because it says, why are you worried about all this God? Because if you think about God, then you have to do upavas, you have to do vrata, you have to follow some discipline, you have to refrain from something, you have to go to the temple and bow down to somebody. Why do you do all that? Just enjoy. So Charvaka philosophy is summarized in one very beautiful shloka. It says, Rinam kritva ghritam pibet, yavat jivet sukham jivet, bhasmi bhutasya dehasya, na puranagamanam bhavet. It says, Rinam kritva ghritam pibet, that is, take debt, borrow money from other people. Rinam kritva, take debt from other people, borrow money, and ghritam pibet, eat food made with ghee. Ghritam pibet. Rinam kritva ghritam pibet, yavat jivet sukham jivet. As long as you live, live happily, enjoy. Just enjoy. Khao piyo ash karo. Why? Because bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kuto bhavet. Once the body has died and it is burnt, bhasmi bhuta means it has been burnt to ashes. That's what is going to happen to all the bodies. Then there is no coming back. You have this body only once. Enjoy with this body as much as you can. That is Charvaka. But Charvaka did not fortunately dominate our culture. All the other philosophies also had a dominant position. Charvaka also was present. It's not new to us. So philosophies like Vedanta, Sankhya, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Yoga, we are learning Vedanta now. But the allied philosophies which also existed with Vedanta are all the other philosophies which I just named. And they also have a lot in common with Vedanta. There are many differences, but there are many things in common as well. And one thing that's common across the Indian philosophies, other than Charvaka, is the acceptance of the Ishvara, the presence of the Ishvara and the presence of something higher than us. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. So here Sridhara Swami, one of the former commentators, in fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti borrows a lot from Sridhara Swami's commentary. So he says, Samyak Prachuta Jnana Bala Viryadi Shaktya Eva Bhavami. I manifest myself by comprehensively putting to task all my potencies, such as Jnana, Bala, Virya, and so on. So this is the meaning of Sambhavami. In the last part of this shloka, the sixth shloka, we see Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. I manifest myself comprehensively by all my potencies. My Atma Maya includes all these potencies like Jnana, Bala, Virya, and everything. Right? So he explains it in this way. And Sri Vidyabhushana, Baladev Vidyabhushana, he also offers an alternative to this understanding of the word Maya, because the word Maya in Sanskrit has multiple meanings. And one of the meanings is the Shakti of Bhagavan. Another meaning of Maya is Jnana, knowledge. So some commentators have interpreted that Atma Maya to mean that by his self-knowledge, by his own knowing potency, the potency to know, the Chit Shakti, he manifests his different avatars. He appears in this way, that way, and so on. But Shri Baladev Buddhabhushana gives one more meaning. He says Maya in Sanskrit also means compassion or kindness, anukampa, right? Or kripa. So he says that this also should be understood, that out of his extreme compassion, he feels that only when I go and show my leelas to people, then some people are attracted to me. Some jivatmas become attracted to me. And those who become attracted to me, they will get liberated. They will get mukti eventually, right? So out of that compassion, I appear in this world. So he says that the word Maya should also be understood in that manner. So this is the explanation for the sixth shloka of the fourth chapter. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavami atma mayaya. So today we have done two shlokas. The first shloka telling how he happened to be giving Vivaswan this. I've had so many earlier births, and that birth was just one of them, and this birth is just another of them. And then beginning to explain his nature. So this shloka is a very deep one, the sixth one, which we just analyzed, and it reveals a lot about him, but there's much more that will come in the subsequent shlokas of the Gita, fourth chapter, seventh shloka onwards. And we will now continue with that from the next session. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Punar Milamaha. We'll meet again.